they have to choose between being members of either SACP because they've got dual membership, or being members of the ANC. The fact that the material possessions at this point in time are attached to the ANC, many of them might choose to remain within the ANC and leave the Communist Party.
The 360 Experience with Thomas M.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 360 Experience. This is the third episode of Weekly News Recap. You guys remember that we started the show with Kobas Kotse. Last week we had Lauren, and this week we also have Benedict. So, guys, we are forming a panel. Guys, can you please greet the viewers? We'll start with you, Lauren.
Hi, viewers. Some of you know me from Organic Humanity Movement, which is a movement that is designed to change the system in South Africa. Thomas and I go way back in the elections, and we're very excited to talk about politics and what's happening in the country. And I just hope that everyone gets informed and also looks deeper with all the news that's presented to them. And that's my hope for these episodes that we do.
Yeah, Kobas.
Good morning, everybody. I decided today that I'm going to wear my Springbok jersey because we're playing the All Blacks in Cape Town later today, but we must talk a little bit, if there's chance today at the end, we must talk about the Springboks and what a big impact they're making on the people in South Africa. It's really an awesome thing. So I also say thank you for the opportunity, and nice meeting you, Lauren and Benedict. So yes, I'm ready. Let's see how we can give our views and things, not always correct. You will agree with me, Lauren, but sometimes it's important that people hear views from different people.
Yeah. Benedict?
Now, I think what we are looking forward to is obviously robust engagements, and perhaps through this episode we'll then be able to sort of give a general and in-depth view about the political landscape and issues that are facing the country in general. So I appreciate the invite to have these discussions, and I value the panelists that you have. So I look forward to engagements. Thank you.
So, guys, I know this was not in the menu, but I want us to start with this topic. I'm not sure if any of you actually realized that Thabo Mbeki is back giving the lectures again. And me personally, I actually spoke about Thabo Mbeki on the previous episode, because I remember, yes, heading into the elections, Thabo Mbeki was actually warning South Africans about the ANC and about what kind of a party that the ANC has turned into. Thabo Mbeki even doubled down to a point where he told the South Africans that he's not going to campaign for the ANC because the ANC is an organization that is led by the criminals. But a couple of weeks before the elections, the same Thabo Mbeki went out and told the South Africans to vote for the ANC. Now Thabo Mbeki is back again, and he's telling South Africans about the ANC and their failure to renew themselves. So what do you guys think it is the angle of Thabo Mbeki right now? Lauren, let me start with you.
I actually have no idea. For me, Thabo Mbeki was the last best president that we had, which was many terms ago. And I think he does have a genuine care for the country. I think he does call the ANC out when they do get things wrong. But I think as someone that was key to the liberation movement back in the day, that he really has invested interest in the ANC being a success. And I think even I've said, even though I'm in the political landscape, I do feel that if the ANC got their act together and actually governed this country properly and let go of their factionalism and united behind creating a strong South Africa, that the majority of all South Africans would actually vote for the ANC. And that would be the quickest solution to the political mess we find ourselves in. So I think he is conflicted in where the ANC was before and where it is now, and I completely understand that.
Yeah, Benedict.
I think one of the realities is that there's always been this notion that the ANC as a political party will self-correct. This has been a statement that has been in the lips and in the statements of most political leaders of the ANC. Now, what Thabo Mbeki finds himself in is the situation where, like Halema Motlanthe, who also uttered the same words, that the ANC, if it does not self-correct, then it will lose power. So the question then becomes that, as a veteran of the movement, what do you then do in instances where you had given the party the liberty to self-correct, as that those that are currently leading the organization will then introspect and then be in a position to self-correct? So you find a situation now where Mbeki has to choose between whether getting in line or watching the party fall apart. So we have a crisis where Thomas, where in which the veterans of the movement of the ANC are now realizing that in the absence of engaging and addressing the challenges faced by the organization, indeed the organization will lose power, as we've seen with the previous elections. So I think Mbeki is conflicted in a sense that he had then said he's not going to campaign for the ANC. Now, what begs the question that comes is what informed his decision to say, now I'll then go and campaign for the ANC? This is a former president. This is a member that has been in the liberation struggle. So the reality is that there might have been intel that he might have received to say that Jacob Zuma might be establishing a political party. Now, the question then says, do you then sit around and not campaign, while you know that a someone of the reputation and stature of JZ will then be outrightly decampaigning the ANC? So I think he was then conflicted in that regard, to say the only thing to do now is to then go back and on what he has said, and then campaign for the ANC.
Yeah. Kobus?
Thomas, yes, I concur with both Lauren and Benedict. I agree with what they are saying. What to me is that in this week he had the lecture. We all know about that. I didn't listen to the whole lecture. I listened to a small portion of it. But another thing is, he is campaigning this weekend in Bloemfontein. After he said he's not going to do things like that and criticizing the ANC, he's in Bloemfontein. You know, so close to you. So you must stop him on the highway there when he passes going home. You know, maybe you can have a chat to him.
Yeah. So, guys, when you look at the ANC, man, like, do you guys think that it is over for the ANC? Because when you look, me personally, when I look at the ANC, I will still give the ANC the credit because it is the political party that was on the forefront fighting for the liberation of this country, fine. But do you guys think that the ANC was actually equipped to govern the country? Because I think their mission was just to get South Africa out of the woods. But going forward, was the ANC the perfect political party to actually take the country forward? Anyone?
Thomas, yeah, I would like to also give a viewpoint there. Maybe I was just a bit fast for Lauren. I really think that we had this Rainbow Nation plan, 1994, everything is going to work for everybody. They had the greatest opportunity to fix this country. I wouldn't have just fired all the people out of their positions in government and things like that and bring cadres in. And I think that to me was the biggest problem, is to bring cadres in and they haven't got the experience to take the country forward. And everything was there. for the wrong reasons. The roads were working, the railways was there, the clinics was clean and things like that. And we don't want to go into that discussion for the wrong reasons. Those things that also were there. We could have just taken it one step further, alleviate the people. This week I was in Ideological in Pretoria. You know that I'm in Swani. It's a mess there. It is an absolute mess. We've neglected the people in those areas for too long. Prior 1994 and until today, we are neglecting them. So nobody's doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And I'm very outspoken about the Sushangwe, Olivano Pass, all those areas which are being neglected still today as we are. It's a big fight in the city of Tshwane with the mayor. We don't have to go that route, but they are neglecting the people in those townships.
Lauren, what do you think, man?
I remember a long time ago coming across a quote. I have no idea who said it, but it was basically that liberators should not be leaders in government. And I've always thought about that. So the ANC had a purpose there to abolish apartheid laws and all the rest, to bring forth a new South Africa, a democratic South Africa, an inclusive South Africa. And then at the same time, there should have been people prepped for government that weren't part of the actual liberation struggle. I think they would have seen more success. They would have still been ANC members, but it would have been two different wings, so to speak. The liberation wing and then the more prepped for governance side as well. And I think maybe that was the failure. So I think that's probably the problem, that people that came from the ugly side of the struggle then stepped into government with the same mentality, not realizing I have power to transform this country, and then actually go and do it. And I think that that's definitely food for thought. I do think the ANC is too far gone. I do know a lot of people think the ANC will self-correct. I think it's way too far gone. And I think it's such a pity, because we had an opportunity to have this organization remain strong, hold the fort, captain the ship for South Africa to become a very strong nation, and also an independent, autonomous nation where we slowly out the outside influences and create boundaries and benefit from our own resources. But instead things went wrong, and I do think it's too late to self-correct. So now it's up to the people on the fringes of the political world in this country to now pick up the pieces and try to come up with a solution, because I do not believe, and we can talk about this later, that the GNU is a solution for this country. And I think it's actually going to take us into a very dangerous direction.
Yeah. So Benedict, what do you think? Do you think the ANC is too far gone?
I think one of the realities that we find, especially in the context of liberation movements across the continent, is that majority of the liberation movement fail to transition into what one would say a modern political party. Most of them are still reliant on we liberated, on the stance that they are saying we liberated you from the colonial era, from apartheid, from apartheid era. But what then becomes a challenge for this liberation struggle movement is that when it comes to transitioning into a modern political party that is able to then cater for the challenges of that are facing the country, they consistently fail to deploy people that have got capacity to run state-owned entities, to also be in government, and that on its own then prohibits the movement from transitioning into a modern political party that is also able to govern in the democratic era, because of issues such as your cadre deployment, of which we know that it's quite debatable. I like the fact that Lauren is also talking about us having to discuss the GNU and how it is. The reason why I'm bringing this point, it's because the DA actually took a stance to say they are against cadre deployment. But when the GNU process started rolling out, that's when we started seeing that In the DA, they are also providing cadre deployment, because when you are saying the only the terms of engagement would mean that you hold certain key positions and you have ministerial positions, that is literally cadre deployment. But in a nutshell, getting back on your question, Thomas, I think the challenges with liberation movements across Africa is precisely that they fail to transition into a modern political party that is able to cater for the needs of a what you call of the democratic period, which is why even in their campaign, you would find that they consistently have to keep going back to their statements of saying they were liberation movement that was able to bring about freedom and so forth, and not necessarily realizing that times have changed. That you have a child that was born in 1994 when the first democratic elections was held. It is now an adult who has to some extent graduated and is part of the unemployment statistics. Now, when you are telling them about the struggle and compromises that were made during the liberation era, that does not in any way speak to to that younger generation. So there's that problem that we see. You will see with ZANU PF in Zimbabwe that you have a challenge where leaders struggle to let go of what you call of power, and that struggle on its own creates factions within the liberation movement. You have those that are saying they are exilees. They are from exile, and they do not have any educational background, but they feel there's a sense of entitlement there, Thomas, that I've served this organization, I was in the liberation struggle, therefore by default, the struggle owes me an executive position. Whether the person has got the capacity to be employed and to run effectively in that particular executive position, there's that self-entitlement that the fact that I contributed to the struggle, one of the defenses is that I couldn't go and study further because I was fighting for liberation. So therefore, by default, I need to be a minister. I also need to be in the presidency. I also need to be a director, where I lack the educational accolades for this. So that is where the cadre deployment then fails significantly in this particular regard when it comes to liberation movement.
Yeah. So speaking of the liberation and the ANC, there is a war that is taking place as we speak right now between the ANC and one of their alliance partner, the SACP. The General Secretary of the SACP, Solima Paila, has come out to actually criticize the ANC for getting into the coalition with the political parties like the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. And he categorizes this as the ANC has taken the sellout position by getting into governance with the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. I believe that Solima Paila also believes that the ANC should have gotten into governance with maybe the EFF and MK Party. But when it comes to the EFF and MK Party, Fikile Mbalula, the SG of the ANC, has already told us how the negotiations went between the ANC and those two political parties. We don't know how truthful those statements are that Fikile Mbalula has actually uttered. So people actually were critical of Solima Paila this week and actually suggesting that maybe it's time for the SACP to start campaigning by themselves, because what's happening, you see the alliance partners of the ANC, they don't even campaign, but the ANC wins the elections. After the ANC has won the elections, the alliance partners are actually rewarded with the ministerial positions, and these are the people that were never voted by the people. So guys, what do you think about this war that is actually happening between the ANC and the SACP? And do you guys actually think that the SACP has what it takes to campaign alone? Because I was watching an interview by their student. I don't know. I don't want to call it a student command. I don't know. It is the Young Communist League, and this guy actually said that the SACP is not scared to campaign outside of the ANC. So, Guabas, do you think that the SACP actually has what it takes to campaign alone? And what do you think about Solly Mapaila's utterances towards the ANC?
Thomas, there's actually a lot of things that we must bear in mind.
You are cutting, Guabas.
Many years ago. Can you?
Okay, Lauren, take it when Guabas is busy fixing. We'll go back to you, Guabas.
I'm not surprised. I think the relationship between the SACP and ANC have been rocky for a long time.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but let's let Lauren take it, and you'll take it after Lauren.
So it's interesting. The SACP, the South African Communist Party, has a fascinating history in South Africa, and actually I'd encourage the viewers to quickly go on, after the video, go onto the South African history website and read about the founding of the South African Communist Party and the long road they've walked to this point. In 1930, I think it was, the ANC rejected communism outright. And what we see in our country is a kind of like a social democracy. And I think that the ANC, what we're seeing is a rise of the more capitalist-orientated faction, which is what makes the GNU work. And the SACP obviously will be up in arms about that. Would they be able to survive as a political party all by themselves? There are over 365, if I'm not mistaken, nationally registered political parties. So they're just going to be another lost voice in a sea of parties, all basically fighting for their little piece of the pie. There are a lot of communist-orientated parties already that are unrepresented. So I feel like the South African Communist Party would basically have to start from scratch, competing with many of a similar name and ideology, and I don't think it would work at all. They need the ANC. And now with the GNU, the SACP, I can understand, will just be this bitter, forgotten part of the organization, screaming for some attention, but not actually getting it, while we struggle towards what I think is going to become, essentially, and maybe we'll discuss it a little later with some of the other articles, I think that with the GNU, we're actually heading towards a two-party state, which will be an absolute blow to our democracy.
Yeah. So, but some of the members of the SACP are in cabinet. We look at people like Blade Nzimande, and this is the reason why the ANC Youth League said that, why don't you withdraw your deployees from the cabinet since you hate this government of national unity so much? So, Lauren, what do you think it is the angle? What do you think is the angle that Solly Mapaila is trying to take? Because me, I honestly do not understand this logic of Solly Mapaila and the SACP, because on one hand, you have no problem with the SACP being in alliance with the ANC. You have benefited with this alliance of the ANC for the past 30 years. And now that the ANC has gotten into the coalition with other political parties to govern the country together, then now you are starting to make noise about this is a sellout position. The ANC was never supposed to take this position, and this is hateful to black child. Then it goes back to the comments that I made, that, but to be fair, not so long ago, Blade Nzimande was embroiled in an NSFAS scandal, and that scandal actually affected most of the black kids, and you said nothing about that. And I'm still looking for the videos where Solly Mapaila was actually condemning the ANC for the corruption that they were actually involved into the country for the past 30 years, and we still cannot find those videos. So this is the reason why I'm saying it's kind of hard for me to actually try to understand what is the angle that Solly Mapaila is trying to take, because now you saying you have sleepless nights because the ANC has get into coalition with the DA, but you never had sleepless night when Blade Nzimande was actually accused of corruption. You know that the students could not access their funds, they were sleeping in hallways, under the bridges, but you said nothing about it. So what do you think, Lauren, man? I'm still trying to wrap my head around the SACP and Solly Mapaila.
I think he's just rooted in sentiment and ideology and not reality. So everything he's saying is based on his communist ideology of wanting to implement Marxist-Leninist principles in our country, get rid of the capitalist side. I think the fact, because the DA obviously is in exact opposition to the SACP ideologically, and that's why he would be so offended. So I think when it comes to ideology, people put aside reality. and they have this emotional connection and this emotional desire to have their vision come into being. So now it's like the ANC sleeping with the enemy in their mind, because as long as the ANC was still in power, they could usher in the revolution that they sought.
Yeah.
Now that they are in bed with capitalists and globalists, that's in direct ideological contradiction to what the SACP has in mind for South Africa. So it's not about Blade and all the corruption. It's about ideology. And this is what can often be a fault here in South Africa. We've ceased to see the reality when we are so invested in an ideal and in things that are perhaps not good for this country and for the democracy that we have.
Yeah, Kobas, what do you think?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree fully with Lauren, and the fact that the SACP and COSATU and the ANC has been fighting for quite a long time, even from Zuma's time. They were already fighting with each other. They didn't want to allow Zuma to speak, but we're not going to vote for you, and then back at the ranch they still vote for them. There's a lot of money that they get through this process. Another thing that we must bear in mind is that the whole idea of the social democratic or the national democratic revolution which they follow is a Soviet era strategy, and they wanted to implement, it's actually the SACP's part to implement this, and using the labor force with on the one side and using the ANC as the vehicle to drive their strategies. So there was a book written, Andrea Jeffrey, don't know if you know her, she's an international writer, and her book is called Countdown to Socialism, which was quite amazing to think. There's a video on that as well, one can only see where she speaks about it, and how the actual democratic revolution is being implemented already in a way, and that is by giving people grants. They want to give them a national insurance, so they want to give them a little bit, but they not really want to help the people in South Africa. So it didn't work in Russia, it didn't work in Venezuela, it's not working in South Africa. Now, interesting now is, in this week, Fikile Mangula on X said the following: the ANC is neither a capitalist or a socialist party. Our relationship with the capital is unity and struggle of the opposite. We are a multi-ideological party at best. You can say we are social democrats. The burden to advance the struggle for socialism is on the South African Communist Party. So it confirms my statement that I've just made. But I mean, he is a socialist. I mean, we know that the ANC, but another thing he says, he's neither a socialist. In 1999, the ANC became a full member of the Socialist International thing, which is all the countries in the world. So there is a change, and I think they have to change. And I think it touches on what Lauren is saying about this two-party thing. So yeah, I have also my thoughts on that, but thank you so much.
Yeah, Benedict, man, what do you think about this war that has broke out between the ANC and the SACP, and what do you think is the end goal?
All right. Look, I think one of the realities here, Thomas, is the fact that your question speaks to the relationship within the alliance itself. And the reality is that the alliance on its own has been somewhat not as effective as it was intended, and there's been a bit of rupture and tensions for some time now. Seeing that, one, you would know that before we had COSATU, that was part of the alliance, and then there was a breakaway where Zoli Nzimavavi also left and started his own union. And you have role players such as the NUM that are seriously still influential within the alliance. in terms of the workers, the working class. The reason why I'm bringing the element or the issue of the aspect of the working class is because why the SACP in its nature is it prides itself because on the basis of its foundations of Marxist-Leninist ideology as being pro the working class. Now, but the sad reality is that in the context of South Africa, the communist voice, because of its alliance within the ANC, has been seriously compromised, and this has been one of the challenges for the Communist Party, because you are in bed, you are in what you call in alliance with an organization that is pro capital. Now, in instances where you need to defend and speak ideologically, there are differences at that level. And if one would come to the issue of whether the ANC, the SACP, I mean, is ready to contest election on its own, this is not a new, what Solima Paila is saying. It's not a new stance that the SACP has taken. And what the YCL is also saying is not new. There was a discussions before the national elections for the SACP to contest elections on its own. Yeah. Part of the reasons why the SACP wanted to contest elections on its own is precisely because they still continuously feel that the communist voice is no longer being given enough room, that they are not consulted in a manner that they should be as alliance partners. Now, let's speak to the issue of membership and the reasons why I think the SACP would not succeed in contesting elections on its own, or the reasons why it might have challenges. In terms of membership, the SACP finds itself with what we call dual membership. Members of the ANC are also members of the Communist Party. There's dual membership, including the same goes for the Young Communist Party, UFA-Simba, as they refer it, that you find duplication in terms of membership. And this is literally one of the realities in terms of how they even go about the recruiting. They would then say members of the ANC Youth League should go and recruit, and they duplicate membership. Now, this goes for its leagues, the Young Communist League, the ANC Youth League. Their membership are duplicates, which is why you would find that a leader, somebody who's leading in the ANC Youth League, by default will also be serving in other structures of the Young Communist League. Now, the same applies for the Communist Party at the national level. That Bladen Zamande is also a member in good standing that of the ANC. There's that issue of dual membership, and this is where the challenge comes then when we want to attach material benefits to this conversation, Thomas. That should it come to a point where the members of the SACP are given an option to say, you are if the SACP decides to contest the ANC, because now you will no longer be in alliance with us, you'll be a competitor, so you'll be another organization that we'll have to compete with. That therefore it says withdraw your people from parliament. This is what Colin is saying in the Youth League, to say withdraw your members from parliament. If it comes to that point, Thomas, in closing on this matter, if it comes to that point, let us logically, if they have to choose between being members of either SACP because they've got dual membership, or being members of the ANC, the fact that the material positions at this point in time are attached to the ANC, many of them might choose to remain within the ANC and leave the Communist Party.
Yeah.
That is the unfortunate reality.
So Lauren, do you think that, because some people have actually said that maybe Solly Mapaila is trying to pave his way out, because just like Benedict is saying, that the ANC, they have all the advantage. Like the SACP might feel the way that they feel, but truth of the matter is that the ANC is the one that actually has the advantage. So do you think that it is possible that Solly Mapaila is actually paving his way out of the alliance or out of this relationship of theirs? Is it possible?
I think that relationship with dual membership and all the benefits is actually just a signal of how toxic our political situation is. Either way, he loses, because if he stays with that relationship, in light of what's happening with the GNU, I'd say he'd be hypocritical to do so, considering the ideology of the SACP. If he has to leave, he's going to be fighting an uphill battle, because political parties are continually fighting for time, airwaves and resources, and it's just going to be extremely difficult. So either way, he loses, and I think it's a very difficult situation to be in. Maybe it's my own bias, but I think there's no real room for communist ideology in a democracy, because should they, out of some miracle, become a ruling party, they would erode the democratic principles that we do have even in our flawed system, to the point where democracy wouldn't even exist anymore. But I think the era for this is up. For the SACP is up now, and I think he's finding himself in a very difficult position.
So Guavas, how do you feel? You are Blade in Zimande, you are the chair of the SACP, then Solly Mapaila is out, trashing the GNU, the same GNU that you are serving as a minister. How do you feel?
I think it's people getting positions just to keep them quiet, So, I agree with that. I also think that the time is up for the SACP. But then again, we've just seen this week Ramaphosa, president of South Africa, has been in negotiations with the Chinese government, and specifically they got close relationship with the Communist Party of China. So they're having that discussions as well, and I think the next step will be to speak to the president of in America, So just to do something, I'm actually waiting for that to happen, because I have to. It is two things, but the place for the SACP is gone. I don't think they got so many members personally. I don't think so. Thabo Mbeki also said in his lecture the other day that he doesn't even know who the members are of the ANC anymore, and they should redo their membership, which is true. Most parties do that from time to time, and I think the ANC should also look at that. What could have happened a couple of years ago is that they could have formed the Kusatu side. They could have formed a workers' party. And I actually thought that was going to happen at that stage when they started these infighting with the tripartite alliance. I really thought there's a workers' party, and that would have worked. That would have worked, the Workers' Party, to formulate the Workers' Party. But no, the SACP, from my point of view, is gone.
Yeah. So, Benedict, do you think that the ANC is now starting to get tired of Solly Mapaila actually attacking them like this? I'm saying this because you saw the response that was given by Colin Malachi, because me personally, I could be wrong. I'm of the view that Colin Malachi, the president of the ANC Youth League, is a hired gun for the ANC top brass to actually say the things that they don't want to say themselves. So if they feel something, they will say, Colin Malachi, go out and say this, because how can Colin Malachi go out and tell Solly Mapaila to get the hell out? If you are sick and tired of our relationship, and if you are against the government of national unity, then maybe you need to take your party, you need to take your bags and get the hell out of here. So do you think that the ANC is starting to get tired of the SACP? And am I wrong for saying that Colin Malachi might be a hired gun for the top brass of the ANC?
That's the latter part of speaking about a hired gun. Look, I won't dwell much into that, but I'll say to you, Thomas, that it has always been the nature of the youth leagues that when the parent organization, when the mother body is seen to be under attack, the youth leagues are what are considered the vanguard of the organization. So it is in their nature and expected of them to come out guns blazing in defense of their mother body. Now the question then becomes as to whether were his utterances necessary, especially at this point in time, where in which the ANC has lost a majority nationally, and there's a decline in terms of its support nationally. And in terms of rebuilding, the ANC requires and needs all its alliances and in order to rebuild. Now, whether the timing of his remarks and how these remarks are going to then impact the ongoing tensions between the SACP and the ANC, it's an issue that we're bound to see. So, but I think that given the challenges that the ANC is currently facing, having to consider coalitions such as your GNU, says to you that at this point in time, you do not want to start having a war with alliances if you are serious and genuine about rebuilding. So to call out and say the SACP can go wherever and leave their alliance and so forth, I think that on its own was somewhat irresponsible, considering the fact that we need to rebuild the organization. I think at this point in time, it was completely unnecessary. It's going to, in fact, aggravate the tensions. It's going to get worse because now the Young Communist League will then have to, as I said, that the youth leagues of any political party are then the vanguards of the political party. So it's going to then be a battle between the leagues, and which then boils down to what we were saying. Is the SACP, even on its own, ready to contest elections on its own without the ANC? And the question also becomes that, is the ANC that has lost what you call overall majority ready to contest elections or any coming elections without its alliances intact? So that's also another question we need to consider, Thomas.
Yeah. So guys, there's another story, man, that caught people's attention. And this actually has to do with the Democratic Alliance approaching the Western Cape High Court to remove Judge Hlope. We know that Judge Hlope is I think is the chief whip of the Umkhonto we Sizwe party in Parliament. So the DA wants to get Judge Hlope removed from the Judicial Services Commission, because we know that, guys, that Judge Hlope was impeached, and right now Umkhonto we Sizwe has actually deployed Judge Hlope in Parliament to be in a committee that actually appoints the judges, that recommends the judges, and the committee that is also responsible for the disciplinary of the judges. So what do you guys think about this? Because MK Party says that, okay, this is our guy, and this guy, we have every right to take him to Parliament, and we have every right to actually place him wherever we want as the MK Party. And the last time Fikile Mbalula was actually asked about this, he said that there were no rules for the cases like the ones of Judge Hlope. But right now, we see the Democratic Alliance actually taking the matters to the courts and saying there is no way that the Judge Hlope can serve in the JSC, whereas Judge Hlope was impeached. And how can Judge Hlope be an honest member and actually discipline other judges, whereas he himself was actually impeached? So, Lauren, what do you think about this? And do you think that this is something that the DA can actually win?
It's boring politicking again. The DA should know as good as anybody the separation of powers, and it's frustrating because Hlope is a member of the MK, not just a member. And I think it's literally just politicking. The GNU is going to be making the life difficult of anyone that comes from the opposition. The EFF is kind of irrelevant now with everything that's been happening internally. And the MK obviously is the opposition. The MK now is officially the opposition in South Africa, and this is just what they do. This is their comfort zone. They see someone doing something they don't like, and then they go to court. And I think it's frustrating, immature, and I think that he is perfectly capable, especially coming from the opposition party, to actually be part of that commission. And I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money to be taking this to court.
Yeah, Kobas, man, what do you think about the DA taking Hlope to court?
First of all, I don't think we can call him Judge John Hlope anymore. It's just Dr. John Hlope because yeah, it is true. But look, I agree with Lauren. It's politicking at this stage because it's not clear written in the Constitution and also in the rules of Parliament that you cannot be proposed as a member to the JSC. So there's no go there. The only thing that I think it can happen is that they're going to go to the Constitutional Court for a review on this, but otherwise the High Court is the wrong place for this argument, my personal opinion. They're going to just say, guys, go away. You know, you can't do anything about that. Go sort out your mess in Parliament, my personal opinion. I didn't see what happened yesterday. I actually lost interest in it, but I do think that this is a constitutional thing. We also have many things at hand. I mean, Makwabane is also there. She's also been impeached. So we're repeating things in things like that. So anybody can be a member of Parliament because you're elected by your political party and you are proposed to go to the commission. You can do nothing about it. I don't think you can do anything about it. Well, whether it's right or wrong, I'm not saying anything about that. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So, Benedict, what do you think the DA is trying to achieve, and is there any way that they can win this case?
Look, I think I concur with both Kobas and Lauren in saying that there's no precedence to what is happening in terms of the legally so. So when Kobas says that the matter would eventually they have to get to the Constitutional Court, then I agree with him in that regard that there's no precedence. But like what Lauren is saying, that this is pure politics. Because when one looks at, you remember that the MK now, MK party is now the official opposition party in Parliament, and which a position which was previously which belonged to the DA. Now, when you have a party which many are saying surprised and shocked everyone, within months it is able to then get to the position of being an official opposition party at that level. So obviously there's bound to be that political attacks on that particular party. So I think this is pure politics, like what Lauren is saying. As to whether the DA would be able to pull this off, the fact that there's no case law that we can rely on in terms of this particular issue says that in nature we know that our law, the law on its own, it's not a rigid. It's not rigid. It keeps evolving, and so we might be seeing a what you call a new sort of legal what you call evolution, you understand, if for the lack of a better word, because there's no case law. So it's a matter that the DA cannot win overnight because there's no legal precedence for it.
Yeah. So Lauren, just like Benedict says that we don't actually have the laws to deal with such cases. So whose fault is it that we are in this position today? And because right now, like just imagine, man, like you are Jacob Zuma, and you know that there are no laws to do research, and you know that Hlope was actually removed, and you take Hlope and you put him there, and you know that it's going to piss these people off because they worked so hard to get rid of Hlope, and now he's there, he's sitting in the same committee, and he says that no, this guy is not qualified to be a judge. So whose fault is it that we are in this position today?
I can't put a blame anywhere. I just think Zuma is brilliantly clever in how he's played his cards. Because remember, why was Hlope impeached in the first place? Because of, I just want to quote it, improper interference in the deliberation of the Constitutional Court in litigation involving the interests of Jacob Zuma. So Zuma has played his cards perfectly, and I absolutely admire that. Why? I'm not worried at all about Hlope being on this commission because there are 23 members of this commission. And if you believe that the judiciary is compromised in any way, he is the best person to be in this commission. And it's a beautiful thing that our separation of powers actually has this loophole because he now has to sit with 23 members who are probably in ideological opposition to him. And he has to interview candidates and he has to deal with complaints. And I think it's actually a beautiful part of our democracy that allows this. So I think it's gonna keep things fun, interesting, and also keep people accountable. You see, in a political democracy such as what we have, we need opposition of ideas. And we need people to disagree with each other and not like each other. You can't have everyone in the same team. You can't have only the GNU members being represented in this commission. You need opposition. And now, yeah, we have a voice who has first-hand experience in how the judiciary works and perhaps how it doesn't work, holding accountable people that just want to toe the line. And I think that's going to lead to very exciting times.
So, Benedict, some of the organizations that are actually siding with the DA, they are saying, no, this is not the matter of the law, but this is the matter of the principle. You can't have this person serving there when you know that what happened with him. So do you think this is going to stick?
Look, look, Thomas, I think your question borders along the lines of honorable members. That what is defined as an honorable member, and I think in the context of South African politics, that word on its own, vis-a-vis some of the people we have in governance who are still having charges to answer to.
You are glitching. You are glitching, my guy.
I think he's laughing.
He's glitching.
I can comment a little bit while we wait.
Yeah. You can go, boss.
Yeah. Look, I also agree that that makes a democracy. People get in from different political spheres. That he is the official opposition. They can put their person there, whether he was doing right for the wrong reasons, as Lauren has also said. Yes, that I can't see that they can stop that, and it is a bit of a problem in the thing. We also see, as she's mentioned, that Zuma is having his time again and he's bringing him back. I mean, we saw Brian Molefe as well from Praza and Eskom. He's back and he's going to the oversight committee on the state-owned entity. So yeah, this is the kind of things that are allowed. I mean, that's my political people. I mean, we saw the EFF going on with Gayton as well, but we're not going to go on that. So everybody has got the right, and that is what democracy is.
Yeah. So, Lauren, you know that we live in a very strange country, man. Anything can happen in South Africa. Boom. The DA wins. What do you... What do you...
I'm immigrating.
Lauren, in this country, man, one thing that I've learned about South Africa is that you must not conclude on anything until it is officially concluded. You can say this is obvious. This is how it's going to go, and you know how South Africa is. Then boom, DA wins. They get rid of Hlope. They get rid of
Can you
Hlope. So
imagine?
what do you think this is going to mean for us and for our democracy?
If they had to win, I think it would be a failure of our democracy because it is two different. You're looking at two different arms of government here. So if they win, firstly, waste of taxpayers' resources, and it just means that there's more people pleasers. More, like I used to say back in the day, the DA are like the teachers' pets of Parliament, and now this GNU, with all of them being in one big happy marriage, it will be a blow to our democracy. We need opposing voices in government. Okay, fine, MK can put someone else forward, but I think the message that the leadership of MK is trying to send here is that they do not trust the judiciary. This man is the best person because he's first-hand experienced the judiciary and the problems. And if they're to win, yeah, is another example of why democracy sucks, basically, is how I feel about it.
Yeah, because this case, man, like this case is it's like this because it actually has people like forgetting some of the rules and just deciding, okay, let me not look at the rules, let me not look at what the political parties can actually do in their own capacity as the political parties and what they are allowed to do in their own capacity. And you have other people saying that no, you see that thing of political parties actually being able to do as they please. Now we have the judges that were actually impeached serving in the same commission that is going to recommend the judges and discipline other judges. So I think this is going to be a very important case for us because I think it's going to set the bar and it's going to actually tell us where are we going as the country. Because if the DA wins, I'm telling you, and Kobas, how do you think the MK is going to respond? Just like I said with Lauren, we live in a very strange country. Anything can happen. Don't say that nothing can happen and something is obvious. Anything can happen.
I agree. Anything can happen. Political parties, the DA. I mean, we see all this mess every day. Anything is possible. You cannot say today that this is going to happen. The DA is not the only party that took them to court. I think there's accountability now, and I think a few other another law, accountability law, there's quite a few people. I see there was another political party there as well. I just think they're wasting their time in courts. My personal opinion, it's not going to happen. As you said, there's 23 members, Lauren, if I'm correct, you said 23, and it's only 6 from Parliament.
Not entirely sure the number.
Yeah, I think it's 6 from Parliament and the rest comes out of the... you still have to give your opinion whether you've been impeached or not, so I can't see that stopping. The DA, look, I personally don't like the DA, but even Helen Zille, I mean, Oma Zille really irritates me. I mean, if she starts speaking and telling everybody what to do, and they're all puppets around her. So I know, it's just another political stuff that they're doing here.
Yeah, Lauren, you also mentioned something important when we started this conversation. You spoke about the GNU is going to lead us to a two-party state. Can you please tell us more about that? Because I think it was because the moment you said that, I said, okay, now we have the government of national unity. Let's say we have 10 political parties that are under this umbrella. Then on the other side, you have the Progressive Caucus, and the Progressive Caucus, most of the parties are gravitating towards the MK party. So is that what you actually mean, that at the end of the day, you're going to have this branch fighting with this branch?
I suppose you could argue that we're already almost there, because if you look at who funds which parties, there's really no real difference. We don't really have an opposition. So the MK, for instance, is an anomaly. They're not towing the line of the funders. Therefore, the GNU is going to rally against them. But what I'm scared of is that we'll literally head into a literal two-party state. Already on the desk of the president is a proposed bill that parties that have less than, for instance, 2% of the vote won't get a seat, which will already remove so many parties currently with seats out of government. This is at a local level, and it's just a matter of wording to change it to national level as well. If you look at the parties currently with less than 2% of the seats in national government, I just want to see if I have it up here. It will rule out so many of them currently in government. And so I think it's easier. Just think of it from a colonial Western imperial funder kind of perspective. It's so much easier to fund 2 opposing parties than it is to fund 10 parties, for instance. It's so much easier to control 2 parties than it is to control 10, 13, 14 parties. And so I think that with this bill being proposed, that only parties with 2% of the vote or more, oh yeah, I have it up here, that would rule out so many. That would rule out, sorry, if that law had to come into being for national government, it would rule out Freedom From Plus, Action SA, it would rule out the ACDP, the UDM, Rise Mzansi, BOSA, ATM, Al Jamar, and NCC. It would rule out half of parliament, and that is undemocratic. We are a very diverse country. We have 60 million people. To have more voices represented, then the better our democracy. To limit that, we can't define all of our interests in 2 parties. It's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to push for with my movement, and that is having independents elected to public office only. So 400 seats would mean 400 geographically represented independents representing the interests of the people within their constituencies. It's a step away from this ideological framework. And so with this GNU, with the official opposition that's now in bed with the ANC, DA and ANC and the others, all working together, it's kind of stupid, because as a member of parliament, you are supposed to work with your fellow members of parliament to do government, and that's not happening. And we've been distracted by party politics all this time. And this is why I say party politics is toxic to the citizens of South Africa. Not toxic to the parties. They're having a whale of a time. They're making tons of money, and they are benefiting from this toxic mess. The people of the country are continuously suffering. The fact that the DA is going to refuse to entertain any proposal towards nuclear development already makes them a threat to national security, because how are we going to grow our economy and industry without more baseload power? But anyway, it's extremely frustrating, and we have literal influential people with lots of resources trying to create something in our political system that will make us less democratic, and I am worried that the people of South Africa will fall for it. A 2-party state will never be good for South Africa. We need to get rid of toxic politics.
So looking at that law, personally, what are the chances that it passes?
I don't know. I mean, anything's possible in South Africa, as you said. Looking at which parties would actually fall out of the legislatures at local government and then later at national, hopefully they would be up in arms, and they'd be able to use their funding to take it to the Constitutional Court, because in our Constitution it says anyone can stand for public office. However, when there's only 2 parties, and now we're going to look more like an American system, that's not going to be reflected. What's in our constitution is not really going to be reflected in society. And I just hope it's legally challenged with everyone's full might. And only based on the fact that well-known established parties now will also be victim. That's the only positive that we have against this proposed bill.
So, Kuobas, with everything that Lauren has said, looking at the GNU, and you also look at the Progressive Caucus, do you also think that we are headed to a 2-party state?
I'm not sure if that is going to happen. I think they want. You must remember it was the National Party prior to 1994, and it was the ANC prior to 2024. So, I think they want to have one party ruling all the time, and I don't think this is good for democracy. I actually applauded the fact that independents could stand for positions in Parliament, and that is what the people want. I mean, it's not just 2% or 1%. It doesn't matter. I mean, the Freedom Front Plus has been there for many, many years in a small portion, and they have done very good work in Parliament. We are getting distracted between the parties at Parliament, and those are the kind of things that people are watching now. They see it on mainline media that the people are not doing their jobs in Parliament, and even the smaller parties are going out of their way to do good work. So no, I hope that this doesn't happen.
Yeah. So Benedict, we are actually having a conversation about South Africa and possibly headed into a two-party state because of the government of national unity and the parties that are getting under that umbrella. And you also look at the Progressive Caucus and the political parties that are just joining the MK party. Like, to be fair, like, this is what is happening right now. It's almost as if these parties that are getting under the GNU, they're somehow joining the ANC, whether they like it or not. You have joined the ANC, and when you are in the Progressive Caucus, you have joined the MK party. You can try to spin it how you like, but that's how it is, because these are two prominent big political parties. So Benedict, do you think that it's possible for us to actually get into a two-party state? And how do you think it's going to work out for us? Looking at the United States of America, you see right now the US is headed to the elections in November. But if you really watch more content and try to understand how the people in the US are feeling, most of the people in the United States are feeling very frustrated because both political parties are not representing them. So is there a possibility that we might be headed in the same direction?
Yeah, no. Thomas, it's a bit tricky. Seeing that I belong to one of the new parties that's just came into the political arena. But I think the multi-party system has been to a certain extent abused. I'm trying to be politically correct in a sense that when they are because when you look at these parties, most of them ideologically, there are a number of parties that you could say they speak more or less the same jargon, in the same way they are common. And the hunger for power then leads for people to establish their own political entities and so forth. But what we've seen right now brings us down to what Soli Mapaila calls a sellout position. Because we're talking, we have to understand to say, how did we get to this point of having what we're seeing, the Progressive Alliance and the so-called GNU group. It is informed by the basis that at some point the ANC had an opportunity to sort of work with organizations that historically are breakaways of the ANC, but then opted to include organizations such as your DA and others that are found within the GNU. So what I'm saying at this point is it could be that it's not going to happen overnight for South Africa to get to a two-party what you call a state. But the direction in which the parliament and governance is going right now with the GNU and the Progressive Caucus then says to you that ideologically we are then going to find contestations in terms of radical what you call the emergence or re-emergence or reactivation of that group which was calling for radical economic transformation. Now, laterally, these organizations which are pro that radical economic transformation are found within a specific group. So that then says to you that in terms of governance, we are then going to find challenges in terms of how do they find. It's going to be quite interesting to see how it unfolds. But I don't think we'll go to a two-party state as yet by 2029. I think by 2029 we'll still have that long ballot that we've seen in the previous election, because majority of these structures are still willing to contest elections, and it's about them occupying space. It's not even about making the meaningful or real change. Kubas talks about the VF Plus, which largely has been representing the minority groups, the minority group, right? Then you have parties that genuinely just want to contest just to secure a seat in legislatures and also in parliament, not necessarily to bring about drastic changes in terms of policies and economic and general development of the country. So I think by 2029, we might still have that long ballot. It's given.
Yeah, because I think Lauren is actually arguing the fact that this is a long-term plan. And Lauren, I don't want us to get into the conspiracy theories, but when you look at everything, I remember the I don't know if it was Paul Mashatile, a couple of months before the elections, he actually said that we need to take the ANC below 50%. And people were shocked that, oh, how can the whole deputy president of the party says that we need to take the ANC below 40%? And of course, the ANC was taken below 40%. And after the ANC was taken below 40%, they formed the government of national unity, taking all of these political parties that were supposed to hold them accountable and put them under one umbrella. So, Lauren, do you think this was by design? Do you think this was by design?
Of course. I 100% think it was by design. And there were a lot of polls that were predicting exactly what happened. Were they predicting it using stats, or was it part of a greater plan? I don't think that our government actually is in charge of this country. It's who funds the parties that are in charge of the country, and it's something I'll believe forever, for as long as this current system exists. And what we see playing out in government is just protecting business interests while keeping people divided and oppressed, increase the cost of living, so we're too busy to fight the system. It's an age-old tactic. And it's sad, and that's why I think the only way to liberate South Africa is through system change. And luckily that is becoming more popular to talk about, and I'm looking forward to that. I just am worried that the GNU will change the system in a way that favors them, favors those in power, and disadvantages the voters.
So, Kobas, do you think that we are getting into the conspiracy theory land, or do you think there's actually grounds for what we are saying?
I fully agree. This is not conspiracy theories. I think there's a plan behind every decision. When you're a political party, the DA will tell you that they do their own polling, they can predict by a percentage point of how much votes they're going to get. The ANC has got the best people to advise them how to do that. I am 100% sure that the negotiations between the Democratic Alliance and the ANC has long been going, and long before the elections has already been there. Yes, this is a problem. A system change is required, I agree. I just think that we are just neglecting the people on the ground. The real poor people have been neglected for too long, and this must stop. You know, there's no political will to help the people. And that is why there's other political party coming to say, let's help them, let's go clean the areas. I fully agree. This is not a conspiracy theory. I think it's happened. It's behind closed doors. It's happening.
And Benedict, do you think that we are getting into the conspiracy theory land? And do you think that Jacob Zuma was possible part of this plan? Do you think that it was possible, like Jacob Zuma was possibly part of this plan? Because you remember what Jacob Zuma said when he announced the MK party on the 16th of December. He said that his plan was not to destroy the ANC, but his plan was to bring back the ANC. So are we now witnessing the ANC being rebranded right in front of our eyes?
Yeah, hey, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, Thomas. Being that what we Zuma is considered a chess master chess player, as has been said, and I think what I think is going to be interesting. It's come 2026. When we go to the local elections, that majority of these organizations, the narrative and the campaigning was around how dysfunctional the ANC was, and how it lacks and how it has failed government and failed South Africa. Now, when you are within the GNU, and this is what I think I'm looking forward to say, how is this going to then what you call unfold? I'm coming to the point of what Lauren was saying, to say, you know what, there's a worry that the GNU might change certain things in order to position themselves quite well. And I think when it comes to the ANC having to brand, I think this itself, it's a subject for another time. But the issue is how how will the parties that are within the GNU campaign in 2026, given that they are part now of the ANC? Are you going to then say the same organization that I'm now working with within the GNU is corrupt, they can't run government? Because now you are part of that institution, you are part of that so-called problem, you are part of it. So how do you then come, because campaigning, when you are going to decampaign yourself because you are now part of government. And I think that's one strategy that the ANC in this regard has been able to manage quite. It's going to be interesting, Thomas. Let me just pause there, because how do you then go and campaign and say no, but they are not working, when they in this regard, you are part of they now, because you are no longer speaking as an outsider. You are part of the institution. It's just going to be very interesting. And then it comes to the issue of your issue of saying whether the ANC is rebranding itself through MK and so forth. It's the stance that MK then has decided. To the credit of the EFF, also one would say that one of their conditions, they made conditions to say, in order for us to form part of the GNU, we do not want so and so of these political parties. We don't want the DA there. If the DA is there, then we're not going to form part. Then it says to you, it gives you a bit of a credibility to some extent as an organization, and whether that will resonate with the electorate, with voters come 2026. It's something that will be interesting to see.
Yeah, Lauren, and I think Benedict is mentioning something that is so important, because how are you going to campaign? How are you going to tell the people that you must vote for me and not vote for the other guy? Or is this coming back to what you said earlier on, that no, these people are now under one umbrella? They are going to campaign by Government of National Unity, essentially telling South Africans to vote for the ANC, the same ANC they have been bashing all of these years. Because you can't go out and say that, no, you see me, I'm not part of those people. Vote for me, but don't vote for those people. But at the same time, you remember, even with the GNU thing, it was said that in the GNU, the political parties are not there to actually implement their own policies. They are there to implement the policies of the Government of National Unity. So do you think that this is something that was actually thought through, that even in 2026, this is what we are going to do?
I often think municipal elections are far more important than national, because municipal deals with the services that affect our day-to-day living, like water and sanitation and such. So I think what we can possibly see is people lose even more faith in the government. And then we have an even lower voter turnout, which will be an absolute tragedy, because I honestly don't know how they're going to campaign. What has happened is that this GNU has almost neutralized all the parties, in that they can't continue on their tactics. There was a time where the DA's entire campaign was anti-ANC, nothing else. Nothing but bash the enemy, which is shaky ground. You can't run an organization based on what someone else is doing that you see wrong. And so we have this grouping. They're funded by the same people. Now, hopefully people can see that. If you look at the comments on social media about the GNU, a lot of people are ill-informed and are celebrating the GNU. People who just want the economy to continue, not understanding the intricacies of what's going on. And I think the downfall of South Africa is in the interests of those who are currently benefiting from our resources and from our wealth. And unfortunately, most people don't see that side. And when the municipal elections come along in 2026, I don't know what's going to happen. We might have a lower voter turnout, or more people will be voting for the same top two parties in the country, and that will be such a shame. What I hope is that those that don't vote wake up and realize that we can completely turn around this entire country by voting for anyone other than those that hold power right now.
Yeah, Kobus, what do you think?
Thomas, yeah, I just think that definitely the local elections is more important at states. That is what's happening on the ground. It's going to happen in 2026. I believe they said they're going to have it in January 2027 because it can be extended still. GNU, it's a big hype. People are actually saying this is a good thing, it's working, we've got national unity, which is not national unity because every political party is not represented in it, so it's just a coalition, and that's where the grand coalition, even Helen Zille says herself, it could be a big threat to our democracy. There's still fights. I mean, we saw the metros in Johannesburg, metro in Ekurhuleni, we see the fights in Swane now, where the DA can't do with the ANC what they are doing in national government. So yes, it's going to be quite interesting times.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming to the show. And before I let you go, briefly, guys, what would you like to say before I let you go? I'm going to start with you, Benedict.
Thomas, it's been quite insightful to have this session, and like I said earlier on, I value the what you call the people that you do your guests. It's been very insightful. So thanks a lot, man. I look forward to another invitation in the near future.
Yeah, next week we are on, my guy. Don't stress. We are on next week, same time. Lauren.
To the people of the internet, hello. I think we have a lot of potential in South Africa. Conversations like this are important. Getting to know our political history as well as where we're headed is also very important. So I'd just like to ask the viewers to just stay awake. Knowledge is power. Learn as much as possible about what's going on. Read between the lines when it comes to the news that's out there in mainstream media. And let's become politically active in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter which political party you join or how you choose to get political active. Take your ideas and put them forward out there in society so that we can improve as a country.
I see Thomas is freezing, but I think I'll give my point as well. I just wanted to say thank you of meeting you, Lauren, and Benedict as well. Thank you for that. I just wanted to say today, the politics and everything we'll be discussing, but there's one thing that happens in South Africa, especially on a day like today, at 5 o'clock, for 80 minutes, there's 14 million supporters of the rugby in South Africa, which never was there. So it's exciting. I've got my jersey on. I'm ready. I'm going to braai. I'm going to have some brandy and coke. I'm going to enjoy this because for 80 minutes, people are cutting themselves off from this political mess that we are in, and that is true. We're talking about rugby and the children and everything. Interesting fact that I wanted to tell you was that outside New Zealand for the All Blacks, the biggest supporter group is in South Africa. I don't know if you know that. That came from the time in the apartheid era where we were banned not to play rugby anywhere in the world, and they started supporting the All Blacks. And there's a big crowd of them, especially in the Western Cape. That's where the big group of that is. So that's also the involvement that we had from the rugby. Totally an Afrikaans type of sport, most popular sport on all communities and all walks of life, and I like that. I wish we could have a political party of the supporters for this, because this is working. The Rassi and his team, Kulisi is such an ambassador for the sport. It's amazing, and if there's one thing that worked from transformation and all the things that we can call, then it's rugby. So yeah, enjoy the game, guys, and thank you once again. Looking forward to your replies from the team.
Yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's weekly news recap. We will see you next week. And please, guys, tell us what you think on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part is subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. My name is Thomas Maba. So I'm with the panel, Lauren, Benedict, and Kubas. We will see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
The 360 experience with Thomas M.